Okay, we're going to do Hegesippus, and we're on page 131, Antiquity Unveiled. And Hegesippus, that's Hegesippus, and he was a Greek theologian, and here's his spirit testimony. My best greetings to you. There is only a fragment of my mortal life now extant. I traveled through almost all the countries at the time accessible. My life was an eventful one. I am set down in history as a converted Jew, when in fact I was not a Jew at all. I was a Greek and lived in Athens. As a traveler over all the countries, I found the idea of some God saving the people who was to be born into mortal life, or in fact, as the speaker said today, a reincarnation of some older god or gods who would effect this. And upon this tradition, the Christians have interpolated the small fragments extant now of the works of my mortal life. In reality, it was nothing more than the teachings of the pupils or disciples of the Alexandrian school going out and spreading this idea, which they received from India through Apollonius. This I positively know to be the fact, because I talked with them and was initiated in some of their secrets myself. But I found that a great deal of it was lost, and while they had some sound moral and philosophical thoughts, they had only one object in view as the basis of their teaching, and that was to gain power. At the time I lived, AD 170, there was a great desire to gather together these traditions and to gain possession of ancient manuscripts in order to patch up a new religion out of the old ones. At the time, it was a fight between the power of learned scholars and the power of pagan priests. The priests bitterly opposed those who were regarded as learned men. My name was Hegesippus. You will find me mentioned, if anywhere, in Tischendorf's writings. That's Tichendorf's writings, who was one of the best scholars in the New Testament matters among modern authors. We refer to McClintock and Strong's Ecclesiastical Cyclopedia and Nouvelle Biographie Générale for an account of Hegesippus. Such are the meager biographical accounts of Hegesippus which may be found in the references. That there is hardly a trace of truth in what has come down to us regarding him seems very certain. That he was not a Jew, his name clearly indicates it, being evidently Greek. He tells us he was not a Jew, but a Greek, that he traveled over all the countries then accessible to him, that everywhere he found the theological idea of some God saving the people that was to be born into mortal life, or the reincarnation of some older God who would effect this. That in his writings he mentioned this fact, and that this was the ground for Eusebius interpolating the above-cited forgery in his reference to him and his work. Further, then, he tells us that his theological idea was especially promulgated by Alexandrian followers of Apollonius in accordance with the Indian theology brought from India by Apollonius. The Spirit tells us that he knows this to be so, from the fact that he had conversed with him about it and was himself initiated in some of their secrets. Even at the early day, the Spirit tells us that a great deal of the teachings of Apollonius was lost, and their only object seemed to be to gain power. The Spirit also tells us that in 170 AD, when he lived, there was a great desire to gain possession of ancient manuscripts in order to patch up a new religion out of the old religions. There is little doubt that Hegesippus was one who attempted that very thing, and that his work, designated by Eusebius, quotes, Memorials of the History of the Church, was a compilation of those ancient manuscripts. Most prominent among was the Hindu manuscripts brought by Apollonius from India. The reference of the Spirit to Tischendorf's writings as the most likely place to find mention of him is not the least significant feature of his communication, as it indicates the spirits are fully apprised of what is going on here on earth after their departure to the spirit life, that the work of Hegesippus quoted by Eusebius was not preserved after it was used by Eusebius to suit himself, shows that the fraudulent writer and forger of Christian evidence could not afford to have it come down to us, as it would, beyond all question, have put an end to the fraud he labored so hard to perpetuate. It will only be remembered that Apollonius, in his communication given weeks before, stated the fact that Hegesippus had copied his version of the Hindu Gospels and Epistles into the Samaritan tongue, from which copy of Hegesippus, Ulfilas, bishop of the Goths, had translated the Codex Argenteus. We regard this communication as genuine and authentic and highly important, as cumulative evidence of the fact that Apollonius, and not Jesus, is the real object of Christian worship, and yet this Greek heathen has been made a saint by the Roman Catholic Church. Okay, that was Hegesippus, Antiquity Unveiled, 131 and up to 133.